size of that.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Everything my desk can fit on that.
You're ready when we are, right? Ms. Higgins, we are ready whenever you
You
are.
ready? Is it 9 o'clock? Yep, it is. Just barely. That's fine. All right. Everybody here. All right. Okay, before we begin, if everyone could please check their cell phones, make sure they're silenced. I would appreciate that. Okay, good morning. The May 28, 2025 meeting of the Punta Gorda Code Enforcement Board is called to order. Will the clerk please conduct the roll call?
Keith Johnson,
Present.
Carl Rich,
Yes.
Joseph Como,
Here.
Kathleen Antona,
Present.
Robert Engelhart,
Here.
Mark Hatala, Adele Higgins,
Here.
Ronald Mouchon.
Present.
Thank you. And before we go any farther, I would just like to place on the record that Ms. Antona has resigned from her position. She is moving out of Punta Gorda, in fact, moving by the end of the week. So we thank her for her service to the board and to the city and wish you success. Thank you very much.
Here, here.
And we're sending a note to Lakewood Ranch telling them when their code enforcement board needs someone to call on.
Thank you.
And I also would like to announce that Mr. Mouchon, who previously was an alternate, has been appointed by City Council as a full member of the board. Thank you, Mr. Mouchon. I appreciate that very much. All right. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes for the prior meeting? Is there any discussion regarding the minutes or corrections? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Rich, second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the April 2025 meeting. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. The minutes for the April 2025 meeting are approved. The next meeting is at this location, Lashley Community Room, on June 25th, 2025. Will the clerk please swear the witnesses?
Anyone intending to provide testimony in today's proceedings, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in today's proceedings? When you approach the podium, please state your name and indicate that you have been sworn for the record.
Thank you. All right, the first item is under new business is hearing in case number 24-86223, Code Compliance Officer Meredith Ochtenberg, Respondent Wayne Riggs, address of violation 329 Burland Street, violation of Chapter 26, Section 8.11B, Property Maintenance Structure. Is the respondent present? Is the respondent present? All right, then the respondent not being present, I will enter a plea of not guilty on behalf of the respondent. Officer Ochtenberg.
Good morning, Meredith Ochtenberg, Code Compliance Officer for the City of Punta Gorda, and I have been sworn. According to the Charlotte County Property Appraiser's records, the property located at 329 Berlin Street is within the city limits of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, and the property is owned by the respondent. I am submitting 12 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the site at the time the pictures were taken. On July 2nd, 2024, I inspected the property and found the roof on the house structure in a state of disrepair, which is a violation of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11B. On July 2nd, 2024, a notice of violation and order for corrective action was sent to the respondent, ordering corrective action be taken and that the roof be repaired or replaced and a permit applied for and obtained within 30 days of receipt of the notice. On July 5th, 2024, the notice of violation and order for corrective action was received by the respondent via certified mail. On December 3rd, 2024, I re-inspected the property and found that the violation had not been corrected and that the roof had not been repaired or replaced and no permit had been submitted or obtained. On December 4th, 2024, a notice of hearing was sent to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which was delivered on December 6th, 2024. On January 10th, 2025, an amended notice of hearing was sent to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which was delivered on January 13th, 2025. On January 10th, 2025, I posted said amended notice of hearing on the property and at the City Hall Annex. On January 21st, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violation had not been corrected and that the roof had not been repaired or replaced and no permit had been submitted or obtained. On January 22nd, 2025, the Code Enforcement Board heard, discussed, and motioned to continue this case for 90 days to the May 28th, 2025 Code Board hearing. On January 22nd, 2025, the notice of continuance was sent to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which was received on January 24th, 2025. On January 22nd, 2025, I posted the notice of continuance on the property and at the City Hall Annex. On April 22nd, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violation had not been corrected and that the roof had not been repaired or replaced and no permit had been submitted or obtained. On April 24th, 2025, the notice of hearing was sent to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which was received on April 26th, 2025. On April 24th, 2025, I posted the notice of hearing on the property and at the City Hall Annex. On May 27th, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violation still remained and that no permit had been submitted or obtained and the roof had not been repaired or replaced and remained in a state of disrepair. I am submitting case costs incurred in the amount of $61.12.
Questions for the officer?
What does this property, since it's been going on for so long, what does this property need to come into compliance? Is it just, I guess more specifically, do they just need to apply for a permit? Or do they have to have the roof completed also?
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor. I've been sworn. First, we look for the permit to be applied for and obtained, and then we will close the case once the roof has been repaired and that permit has been closed out by the building department.
So, if they applied for a permit, it comes off of our plate and you watch it again, is that the case?
Yes, when they apply for a permit, they have 6 months to complete the project.
Okay.
And there's been no permit ever applied for?
Correct.
And what was the reason for our continuance from January? It was
I believe the respondent was present and requested.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances, and he's gone round and round with contractors, and I think his mother's
Oh, yeah,
involved,
yeah.
and it's just, it's a mess. And I reckon there are some fundamental structural issues involved in the roof that make it more complicated than it necessarily, it was quite a mess, and so we continued it because it was such a mess, and giving him more time.
And that was at his request?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Or our suggestion, I reckon.
Yeah. Mr. Engelhardt?
Is this the fellow whom we referred to the sheriff's department?
That's correct. We did refer
And then,
to the IRIS team, the sheriff's department.
okay, and secondly, hadn't he applied for a program run by the state?
That is
And do we
correct.
know the status of that? Is that what's delaying progress? Does anybody know?
We don't have any status update on that.
Do we
We
have any
haven't heard from the respondent since the hearing 90 days ago.
And do you know if the house is currently occupied, if he's still living there?
I do not know.
Make a motion.
It appears that there's been additional tarps put on it
Yes, neither.
Yes.
in the April. The first ones were really torn up, and it seems like now that there's more
Yeah.
tarping done almost over the whole roof.
Make a motion.
Sure.
Rich, make a motion that the city is presenting a prima facie case.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Right, there's been any discussion? There's been a motion and a second that the city has established a prima facie case. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? The motion carries. The board has found that the city has established a prima facie case.
Make another motion.
Before that, so there's been no contact with this respondent since the last board
That's
meeting?
correct.
Okay. And we don't even know if he's still in the property?
I do not know.
Okay, all right, just making sure. All right, I'll entertain another motion.
Rich, make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that the respondent violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11 Bravo of the Punta Gorda Code and issue a cease and desist order for any future violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 811 Bravo of the Punta Gorda Code, and order that the respondent bring the property into compliance within 30 days of receipt of this order, and is further order respondent is required to pay case costs incurred in an amount of $61.12 within 30 days of receipt of this order. Is further ordered that failure to comply with this order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. And I mentioned 30 days because he'd already been given an additional 3 months, and all he needs is to get the permit, and then he has plenty of time to do the roof. That's why I picked 30 days.
Okay, so the understanding being that bringing the property into compliance means applying for a permit.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. The board has found that the respondent violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11B of the Punta Gorda Code and issues a cease and desist order for any future violation of the code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11B, and orders that the respondent bring the property into compliance within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further orders that the respondent be required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $61.12 within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further ordered that failure to comply with this order may cause the board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. Thank you. And Officer Ochtenberg, if Mr. Riggs contacts you, since we have had some issues with him before, could you refer him to the IRIS team? IRIS being Integrated Response for Intervention and Support, which is run by the county. All right. The next matter is a hearing in case number 25-87831, Code Compliance Officer Frank Coppinger, Respondent Simon and Sheena Jacobson, address of violation 455 West William Street, alleged violations Chapter 26, Section 8.11B, Property Maintenance Structure, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, Outside Storage. Are the respondents present? Are the respondents present? All right, the respondents not being present, I will enter a pleas of not guilty on behalf of the respondents. Officer Coppinger. Good morning.
Frank Coppinger, Code Compliance Officer for the City of Punta Gorda, and I have been sworn. According to Charlotte County Property Appraiser's record, the property located at 455 West William Street is within the city limits of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, and the property is owned by the respondents. I am submitting 19 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the site at the time the pictures were taken. On April 7th, 2025, I inspected the property and found that the siding on the house structure is in a state of disrepair, which is a violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.1B Bravo, and that there is outside storage next to the house structure on the property, including but not limited to wood materials, building materials, propane tanks, and other miscellaneous items, which is a violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 9, Section 9.2A Alpha. On April 7th, 2025, a notice of violation in order for corrective action was sent to the respondents ordering corrective action be taken and the siding be repaired or replaced within 30 days of the receipt of the notice, and the outside storage, including but not limited to wood materials, building materials, propane tank, and other miscellaneous items stored inside or removed from the property within 10 days of the receipt of the notice. On April 9th, 2025, the notice of violation and order for corrective action was received by the respondents via certified mail. On April 28th, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found the violations had not been corrected and that the siding on the house structure remains in a state of disrepair. And the outside storage next to the house structure on the property, including but not limited to wood materials, building materials, propane tank, and other miscellaneous items remained on the property. On April 28, 2025, a notice of hearing was sent to the respondents via certified return receipt mail and was delivered on April 30, 2025. On May 27, 2025, a reinspection of the property by Code Compliance Supervisor Nick Faulkner found that the violations had not been corrected and that the siding of the house structure remains in a state of disrepair, and the outside storage next to the house structure on the property, including but not limited to building materials and other miscellaneous items, remained on the property. I am submitting case costs incurred in the amount of $15.93.
Any questions for the officer? Has there been any contact with the homeowner?
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor, and I have been sworn. Just wanted to clear up a couple things for the record and for the minutes, that the chapters in violation are Chapter 26, Section 8.11B,
Right.
and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A.
Okay,
That's what it says.
that's what it says on my
Yeah, that's what it says
form.
on my-
Okay. Has there been any contact with the homeowners?
The homeowner did contact me at one point and said that he was working with a contractor. I asked him to update me with any progress, and as of yesterday, he has not.
Is this the type of work for which a permit would be required?
Don't believe the siding needs the permit to be replaced, and all the outside storage just needs to be removed.
Question? Mr. Engelhardt?
Less a question than just an observation that some of the photos are dated and some of them are not. It just helps us to track some time series analysis here.
You can see at the bottom left they are dated. It's just the
They didn't show up.
slideshow zoomed
Okay.
in a little too far.
Okay.
Yep, see.
It does look like a contractor's truck there in some of the photos. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, when did he contact you?
After he had received a notice of violation, I don't have the exact date that he contacted me.
Approximately?
It was received on April 9th, so sometime after April 9th.
And what was the result of that conversation?
He just informed me that he had, attempting to get contractors to do the work. And at that conversation, I did ask him if he was to find one to contact me and give me an update. But since I have not received anything from him.
Okay, any further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the city's established a prima facie case.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. Is there any further discussion? The motion carries. The city has established a prima facie case. Excuse me. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for a motion for the next step. We're in order. You wanna make a motion?
I'll
Thank
make
you.
a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Angelina.
I'll make a motion to find that the respondent violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11 Bravo of the Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2 Alpha of the Punta Gorda Code, and issue a cease and desist order for any future violation of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11 Bravo, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2 Alpha of the Punta Gorda Code, and order that respondent bring the property into compliance within 60 days of receipt of this order, and further ordered that the respondent is required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $15.93 within 30 days of receipt of this order. Further ordered that failure to comply with the order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. I gave it 60 days, only because this is the first time we've heard the case, but 30 days to pay the fine, so we know he's getting attention.
All right,
I'm
Rich,
willing to.
second.
Okay.
thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion carries. The board has found the respondent violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11 Bravo of the Punta Gorda Code and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A of the Punta Gorda Code, and issues a cease and desist order for any future violations of these sections of the Punta Gorda Code, and orders that the respondent bring the property into compliance within 60 days of receipt of the order, and further orders the respondent be required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $15.93 within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further ordered that failure to comply with the order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. And I appreciate the putting on the record the basis for the number of days. That's helpful and important.
How many days for each of these? I thought it was 60.
It's 60 for compliance and 30 days to pay the
penalty.
court costs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the city costs.
See.
City costs. All right, the next matter is a hearing in case number 24-86638. Code Compliance Officer Nick Faulkner, respondents Jesus Garcia and Ann Suris. Address of violation 470 Bal Harbor Boulevard. Alleged violations, Chapter 26, Section 8.11A, property maintenance roof. I understand there is a motion from the city.
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor, have been sworn. Motion to dismiss properties in compliance.
All right, any discussion? All right, any opposition to the city's motion? All right, the city's motion is approved. This matter is dismissed. Thank you. All right, the next item is hearing in case number 24-86858. Code Compliance Officer Frank Coppinger, respondent 24/7 Automotive Performance LLC, care of Christopher Chase. Address of violation 415 Cooper Street. Alleged violations, Chapter 26, Section 8.5 B2F, fence and disrepair. Chapter 26, Section 8.10, multiple axle trailer, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, outside storage. Is the respondent present? Is the respondent present?
Yes,
Yes. You must be Mr. Chase.
that's me.
All right, Mr. Chase, have a seat.
You don't want them?
Yeah, I'm sorry. How do you plead to these allegations, guilty or not guilty?
Well, I'm not guilty. I mean, has anybody been by there recently?
Then you, all right, I'll enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. We'll hear from the city's representative first, and you'll have an opportunity to question him, and then you'll have an opportunity to put in your own evidence. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Coppinger.
Frank Coppinger, Code Compliance Officer for the City of Punta Gorda, and I have been sworn. According to the Charlotte County Property Appraiser records, the property located at 415 Cooper Street is within the city limits of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, and the property is owned by the respondents. I am submitting 23 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the site at the time the pictures were taken. On January 31st, 2025, an inspection of the property by Code Compliance Officer Meredith Arkenberg found a fence in disrepair on the property, which is a violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.5 B Bravo 2F, a multiple axle or two rear wheel per side trailer that was being parked or stored on the property, which is a violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.10, and outside storage on the property, including but not limited to tires, wood pallets, and other miscellaneous items, which is a violation of Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 9, Section 9.2A alpha. On February 3rd, 2025, a notice of violation and order of corrective action was sent to the respondents ordering corrective action be taken and that the fence be properly removed or repaired and a building permit be applied for and obtained to have the fence repaired and the outside storage be properly removed from the property or stored inside within 14 days of the receipt of the notice, and the multiple axle trailer be properly removed from the property within 48 hours of the receipt of the notice. On February 5th, 2025, the notice of violation and order for corrective action was received by the respondents via certified mail. On March 20th, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violations had not been corrected and that the fence had not been removed or repaired, and the outside storage remained on the property, and the multiple axle trailer remained on the property. On March 21st, 2025, a notice of hearing was sent to the respondents via certified return receipt mail, which had been delivered to the respondents on March 24th, 2025. On April 17th, 2025, a notice of continuance was sent to the respondents via certified return receipt mail, which was delivered on April 21st, 2025. On May 27th, 2025, a re-inspection of the property by Code Compliance Supervisor Nick Faulkner found that the fence in disrepair had been removed. However, the violations had not been corrected in that the outside storage, including but not limited to tires, metal railings, and multiple axle trailer, remained on the property. I am submitting case costs incurred in the amount of $26.47.
All right, Mr. Chase, do you have any questions for Mr. Coppinger?
No, I'm assuming you've been by there recently. This property in question, you guys realize used to be owned by the Davises since 1948, and that this property was owned by an excavation company. So historically speaking, this was a commercially used property, and they had all manner of machinery and equipment parked there, bulldozers, backhoes, semi-trailers, things like that. And the smokehouse is on my property. Have you guys ever eaten there? Anybody been there to eat? It's one of the oldest restaurants you have I think in Punta Gorda. They've been there for 45 years.
All right, so Mr. Chase, what is your, how long have you owned the property?
Since 2020.
All right, and do you conduct a business on that property? Is there a business on that property?
No, there's not any business on the property except for the smokehouse.
All right, so what's alleged here relates to things that are being stored on the property.
Well, everything you're seeing there, most of that stuff is not even there, hasn't been there for months.
All right.
And that actually, the dual axle trailer that's parked in front of the house, because we did have a couple of storms that hit recently, since 2022, and that was actually parked there so that we could gut the house. And I've only spent $350,000 plus. I'm at $388,000 out of pocket to repair all the property so far. And the dumpster that you see parked there is to put trash in so that it's not all over the yard. And that big tire you see leaning up against the metal building has only been there probably since before I was born. I was born in '62. That tractor tire has been there since the Davis owns that property. I never even moved it. So you have a picture of a thing that you're having a problem with, a tire that's been there longer than most of us have even been living. So I find that interesting. But
Okay.
most of that stuff has been removed and is off on another property. So if you drive by there now, the only thing that's left is that one trailer that you were just pictured right there. And I've got to go take that to the dump because that's the last amount of trash that was in the building, and it's ready to be rented or occupied by somebody now.
Okay, so your position, as I understand it, is that every one of these allegations has been complied with. You've made
Yes,
the
ma'am.
corrections, excuse me, except for that trailer, which you're going to take care of imminently.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Coppinger, what's the state of the property today as of when you've last inspected it?
Well, Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor, I've been sworn. The pictures from May 27th,
Which is yesterday.
yes. Sees that the tires are still there. You've got some outside storage still remains. The multiple axle trailer there, and the multiple axle trailer that's also there, and the metal railing on the property. So those are the violations that still remain.
So there's more than one multiple axle trailer.
Correct.
All right. Any questions from the board for Mr. Chase or Mr. Coppinger? Or Mr. Faulkner? Mr. Faulkner, did you conduct yesterday's inspection?
Yes.
Any more questions?
What,
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah.
Kamal.
just several years ago, there was a very similar case in this area. Is this in any way related to that?
This is the same property.
Same property?
Yes.
Okay. So we've seen this before.
Yes.
Okay.
Did we issue a cease and desist on the previous opportunity?
I'm not clear on that, and it could be, later than 5 years. Plus, Frank Coppinger is a new code officer, so he'll make his own determination as he, gets to know the area and gets to know the property owners.
One concern I have is the term outside storage is rather vague in terms of, and we want people to be in compliance. So we want people to understand what constitutes a code violation and what does not. How has this been communicated to Mr. Chase? Which items constitute code violations?
Well, each item is listed in all the notices that he's received.
All right, do you have, are those notices going to be included in the record, in the written record?
They already have.
They already have?
Yes.
Okay. Are they before us?
Yes.
All right, let me look at those.
And I think I understood from possibly Mr. Coppinger that the fence has been repaired? The fence is,
That's correct.
okay, thank you.
The respondent mentioned that the trailer was going to be removed today.
Oh, yeah, I've got to take it to the dump.
How about the second trailer? What's the status?
That's not even there.
Oh, so it's already been removed?
Everything you see in the picture, 99% of it's not there. I mean, the tractor tire's still laying up there. It's kind of cool. It's old. It's been there since before I was born, so I figured, what the hell? Leave it there. I like history.
But it's recognized that if you do leave it there, you'll not be in compliance.
So they don't want the tractor tire there anymore?
I believe that that's an issue, yes.
Well, tractor tire isn't mentioned on the notice. I hate, it's not.
It is picture.
It's in the picture. I understand that. I'm trying to help you here, Mr. Chase. But it's not in the notice. And if it's not in the notice, I'm a little concerned that the city's not adequately communicating to the property owner what needs to be done.
On January 31st, 2025, an inspection of the property found multiple axle trailer and outside storage on the property, including but not limited to tires, wood pallets, and other miscellaneous items.
All right, is that in the record?
Yes.
Was that notice given to Mr. Chase?
Yes.
All right, well, tires does not necessarily, all right, were there other tires on the property? I mean, your most recent notice does not mention it. I mean, Mr. Chase, to be really candid, it would be real, if the city has a problem with it, is it really difficult for you to take that tire away?
No, I mean, if you really want
If you really want to have it, can you move it?
Would you like it in your house for a planter?
I have enough planners already, but thank you very
A
much.
lot of people like them for planters.
I understand, yeah.
Well, I guess I can remove it.
I would appreciate that. I think the board would appreciate that. I think the city would
It's on the
appreciate
back
that.
side of the,
There's two tires
that's the
there.
back, on the back side where the restaurant is and the trash is.
Okay,
So this may be parsing, but in the picture of the large tractor tire, there's also a small automobile tire, as in plural
there, yeah.
tires.
tires, okay,
Yes, yeah, so.
okay.
And just to clarify again, there are 2 trailers on the property, and you said you're going to remove one?
Well, at one time there were 4.
Okay, but I'm just trying to be clear. Are there
Yeah.
2 currently as of May 27th?
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to remove 1. What about the second one?
Well, there's only one there right now. That one puts you right there, stop, that one. That's the only one that's there right now.
Can you show us
There's
a
no boat
picture
there,
of,
there's no
can
no
you
blue truck,
show us a
none
picture
that
of the other one?
Most of those things are gone. Those were temporary pictures that, I mean, temporary vehicles at the time that were there, that people had parked there. People park back there because when they go to the restaurant in the morning, they happen to eat there and they park on the property. I told them they can park wherever they want.
Unsodded parking lot.
That's the one that's currently there right now.
Okay, and the one with the truck was somebody was parked there, is that correct?
No, the one with the truck with the trailer, that was mine, but that trailer's gone. That one there?
Yes, that one,
Yeah,
there.
that trailer's gone.
That car and that,
Yeah, it's
okay.
gone.
That was there
It was
yesterday.
pictured yesterday.
It was yesterday, but it's not there today.
Okay, thank you.
I got rid of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I
okay.
restored it yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chase, I really appreciate your coming today, and I really appreciate your candor. It seems to me that you're interested in making sure that your property complies with the code requirements, and I think the city is very appreciative of that. And I hope that going forward, you'll work with the city code compliance team in order to make sure that your property remains in compliance. Sounds like you're working on that.
Yeah, but it's, as a taxpayer, I do pay $14,000 a year taxes, and it's actually cost me just shy of 50 grand for insurance now just to have the opportunity to occupy the space there. And it seems like I'm a renter, and it does seem like, all of your zoning laws, most of them are pretty oppressive and not really in compliance with the general area. Since I happen to be next to the hospital, I'm right on the edge. Actually, Cooper Street is the edge of the city, the border of the city property.
Right, yes, I'm aware of that.
And I'm not. It's really not bothering anybody over there. And historically speaking, it was more of an industrial site, commercially used. And I don't understand why there's such a problem with it now. It's not like I have $1 million homes like in PGI parked all around me. So I just don't understand the animosity that's necessary, that you have to come by and harass the hell out of me.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily animosity. I'm not speaking for the code compliance team, but they are charged with enforcing the ordinances that city council enacts.
Right.
And the ordinances are for all of us within the city limits. I think if you have a problem with the ordinances in terms of you don't think they should apply to your property, that's something that should be taken up with city council in terms of.
So I should talk to the city council about most of their zoning laws then.
That might be,
That could-
well,
that could take quite a session.
well, you are a taxpayer, you're a property owner, you have the right to comment to city council with regard to how you feel the laws are affecting you.
And you guys all live here, I assume, right?
We do, and we're charged not with making the laws, but just with enforcing the ordinances that have been
Gotcha.
provided.
Well, you guys should come by the smokehouse and have breakfast there.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Rich, make a motion that the city has established a prima facie case.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? The motion carries. The city has, the board has found that the city has established a prima facie case. Mr. Chase, what this means is the city has established that you have had violations of the city code. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is whether or not the evidence establishes that the board should make an order to keep you from doing this in the future. And so if we determine that an order is appropriate and you violate that order, then there can be a fine. At this point, there is no fine. There may be costs, which are relatively minimal, but we will go to that standpoint. Is there any discussion before a
Madam Chair,
motion?
just, sorry,
Of course.
Dan Lewis, Board Council. Prior to just making a ruling, I just want to confirm on the record whether or not.
Again, to reiterate, Dan Lewis, Board Counsel, I would just want the board to confirm whether or not Mr. Chase has any further information to put on in his defense before there's a final ruling made.
As to a prima facie case, or no, as to?
No, as to his, since you've already found your prima facie case, we now would go to whether or not if he has a defense and anything else, and any evidence or witnesses.
Of course. Mr. Chase, is there anything else you'd like us to consider?
Well, I mean, you guys came by and fixed my water meter, and there was a nice cast iron water meter can there, which is really strong. You could drive your car over it. Well, they came by and they fixed it, and then they put this plastic piece of junk in its place, and they took away the nice cast iron one that's been there for like 60 years. Why did they do that? I've got a picture here of it. I mean, I'm trying to fix the property.
I understand. I understand.
I spent $2,200 just on the front lawn of that one house. And literally the next morning, the trash guys that actually take the trash away from the smokehouse drove right across the front of the property. Would you like to see a picture of that?
Well, that's not before us, but you.
I mean, if you guys are charged with the zonings and you want everything to be nice and clean, it'd be nice if you guys drove by there to see how it looks.
We're not allowed to.
What's that?
We're
We're only allowed to consider.
You're not allowed to?
We're only allowed to consider what's.
This is public property. You can go drive by there and at least eat at the smokehouse, and you might notice the house or the property on the way there, you know? And you see the property now. I mean, the pictures don't really respond to how it really looks now. You know?
And if you have
Reflect.
any complaint with Public Works, you could make a complaint to them.
Well, I've done that, but yeah, maybe you guys have a little more pull.
I doubt that. All right. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yes. Sir, how much time do you think it would take for you to come in full compliance with the city's needs or the city ordinances?
To get rid of the tire, I can do that today, and the trailer today. So today.
Do you have full understanding of what the city's asking for?
The tire and the trailer removed, yeah.
So you could do all of that today?
Yeah. Well, I was going to be taking it to the dump this morning anyhow, so I was going to go store the trailer away. But since it's an eyesore for you guys for the tire that's been there for almost as long as I've been alive, I guess I can remove it now for the first time in 60 years.
We'd appreciate it. All right. Mr. Rich, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to find that the respondent has violated Chapter 26, Section 8.5, Bravo 2, Foxtrot of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.10 of the Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 9, Section 9.2 Alpha of the Punta Gorda Code, and issue a cease and desist order for any future violations of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.5, Bravo 2, Foxtrot, Chapter 26, Section 8.10, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2 Alpha of the Punta Gorda Code. Order that the respondent bring the property in compliance within 30 days of receipt of this order, and as further order, respondent is required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $26.40 within 30 days of receipt of this order, and is further ordered that the failure to comply with this order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of $250 per day plus applicable interest. I picked 30 days since the respondent has indicated he could do that well within that time frame.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. The board has found that the respondent violated Chapter 26, Section 8.5B2F of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.10 of the Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2 Alpha of the Punta Gorda Code, and issues a cease and desist order for any future violations of these sections, and orders that he bring the property into compliance within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further orders that the respondent be required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $26.47 within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further orders that failure to comply may cause the board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. Mr. Chase, thank you for your willingness to be here today, and thank you for your willingness to comply with the board's requirements.
Where do I pay the $26.40?
Where do you pay the $26.40, Mr. Faulkner?
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor. I've been sworn. I pay that at the city clerk's office. They're located at 126 Harvey Street, third floor.
Yeah, third floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chase. Appreciate your time. Okay. The next matter, if you have a moment, let's take a break for a second. Off the record.
Break it is.
Break it is.
Break it is.
Okay.
Right?
Break, break, break.
The hearing in case 25.
Madam Chair, if we can
Yes.
just have a couple more moments.
Oh, sure.
Certainly.
Yep. We'll let you know when we're ready.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
I used to teach at West Point.
Three seven. Code Compliance Officer Meredith Ochtenberg. Respondents, Mark J. and Kim DeBelis Byrne. Address of violation, 7550 South Blue Sage. Alleged violations, Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, outside storage, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2D, vehicle inoperable, unregistered. I understand there is a motion from the city.
Motion to dismiss. The property is in compliance.
All right, is there any question or discussion? Any opposition to the city's motion? All right, then, the city's motion is approved. Thank you. This matter is dismissed. The next matter is a hearing in case number 24-86898, Code Compliance of Frank Coppinger. Respondent, H&L Property Group Incorporated, registered agent Lisa Lamb. Address of violation, 401 East Ann Street. Alleged violations, Chapter 26, Section 8.11B, property maintenance structure, Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, outside storage, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2D, vehicle inoperable, unregistered. I understand there's a motion from the city.
Yes, the property is all in compliance, so everything has been corrected.
All right, is there any questions for Mr. Coppinger? Any opposition to the motion? All right, then, your motion is approved. This matter is dismissed. The next item is a hearing in case number 825-87377, Code Compliance Officer Nick Faulkner. Respondents Richard E. and Mary D. Fleenor. Address of violation, 2817 Sancho Panza Court. Violations alleged, Chapter 26, Section 8.11A and B, 2 and 3, property maintenance, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2G, public nuisance. Are the respondents present? Are the respondents present? All right, then, the respondents not being present, I will enter a plea of not guilty on their behalf. Mr. Faulkner.
According to the, Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor for the city, and I have been sworn. According to the Charlotte County Property Appraiser's records, the property located at 2817 Sancho Panza Court is within the city limits of the city of Punta Gorda, Florida, and the property is owned by the respondents. I'm submitting 17 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the site at the time the pictures were taken. On January 30th, 2025, I inspected the property and found that the roof on the house structure is in a state of disrepair, and the pool enclosure on the rear yard of the property has torn and or missing screens and is detrimental to the public safety and welfare, which is a violation of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11A, B, 2, 3, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2G. On February 4th, 2025, a notice of violation and order corrective action was sent to the respondents, ordering corrective action be taken and the roof in disrepair be repaired or replaced, and the pool enclosure screens be repaired or replaced within 30 days of receipt of the notice. On February 6, 2025, the notice of violation order corrective action was received by the respondents via certified mail. On April 3rd, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violations had not been corrected and that the roof remains to be in a state of disrepair, and the pool enclosure on the rear yard remains to have torn and or missing screens, which is detrimental to the public safety and welfare. On April 4th, 2025, a notice of hearing was sent to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which was returned undelivered on April 25th, 2025. On May 12th, 2025, I posted a notice of hearing on the property and at City Hall Annex. On May 27th, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violations had not been corrected and that the roof remains to be in a state of disrepair, and the pool enclosure on the rear yard remains to have torn and or missing screens, which is detrimental to the public safety and welfare. Submitting case costs incurred in the amount of $20.98.
The latest notice was returned undelivered.
That's correct.
Do you know if the house is occupied?
I do not.
Have you had any contact with the owners?
I have not.
Not. Okay.
Any other questions?
Has that changed?
Just a comment, just looking at some of the pictures, it looks like they have their storm shutters up.
Let's see.
There's a few of them there. Right there.
Oh, yeah.
And there's another one with a little archway window in the front, I think. Slow down. There, you can see.
Yeah.
So it looks like they may have, I don't know, speculation, but
They may be,
may not be there.
may not be there.
Another one there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another, yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the city has established a prima facie case.
Is there any second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposition? The board has found the city has established a prima facie case. All right, moving on. Is there any further question for Officer Faulkner?
Make a motion.
Make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Rich. Respondents violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11, Alpha Bravo 2, 3 of the Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 9, Section 9.2, Golf of the Punta Gorda Code, issue a cease and desist order for any future violations of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11, Alpha Bravo 2, 3, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2, Golf, and order that the respondent bring the property in compliance within 15 days to receive the order. And is further ordered the respondent is required to pay case costs in the amount of $20.98 within 15 days to receive the order. And is further ordered that the failure to comply with this order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. 15 days was selected because they will receive notice that this was detrimental to public safety and welfare back on February 6th. And because it is detrimental to public safety and welfare, that's where 15 days was selected.
Is there a second?
Question.
Go ahead.
Here we go again. Okay, so what constitutes in compliance? Is this like the house we talked about previously? Do they have to draw a permit, or do they actually have to complete the work?
Building department will determine if they need a permit or not for the repair of the roof. If they replace the roof, it definitely would.
Yeah.
For the screen enclosure, just replacing the screens does not require a permit.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
Also, one other thing, if they put up a temporary barrier around the pool cage to block the pool, that would not also constitute as in compliance.
In other words, they need to replace the screening.
Yes.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I have a legal question. I know this individual, I have a personal knowledge of it. We served on a previous board together. Do I vote on this or abstain? How would that?
Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Bouchon, again, let me see here. Again, Danielle P. Lewis, Board Counsel. Mr. Mouchon, you've indicated that you know the property owner, correct? Have you had any discussions with the property owner in regards to this matter?
No, this is all new to me just today.
Would anything in this case make you, would knowing the property owner make you unable to properly, fairly, and impartially make a ruling on this matter?
No.
Okay. At this point, since it's been indicated on the record that Mr. Mouchon does know the property owner, but has not spoke to him with the case, and he had indicated that it would not make him unable to be fair and impartial. I don't see there's any concern of not having Mr. Mouchon vote on this.
All right. Does that satisfy your concerns, Mr.
Thank you.
Mouchon? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
And thank you, Mr. Mouchon, for bringing that up. It's really important. Thanks. All right.
Motion second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion carries. The board has found that the respondents violated Chapter 26, Section 8.11A, B23 of the Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2G of the Punta Gorda Code, and issues a cease and desist order for any future violations of these sections of the code, and orders the respondents bring the property into compliance within 15 days of receipt of this order, and further orders that the respondents be required to pay case costs incurred in the amount of $20.98 within 15 days of receipt of this order, and further orders the failure to comply with the order may cause the board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. And I'll just put on the record that this means it's likely that we'll be seeing this case again next month. All right, unfinished business. The first matter is a hearing imposing penalty. Hearing in the case number 24-86331, Code Compliance Officer Meredith Ochtenberg. Respondents Robert E. and Lisa E. Johnson. Address of violation 322 East Grace Street. Violations alleged, Chapter 26, Sections 8.11B, Property Maintenance Structure, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, Outside Storage. Ms. Ochtenberg. Is the respondent present? Is the respondent present? All right, the respondent's not being present, then I will issue enter an order of not guilty on their behalf. Ms. Ochtenberg.
Meredith Ochtenberg, Co-Compliance Officer for the City of Punta Gorda, and I have been sworn. This matter having come for hearing before the City of Punta Gorda Code Enforcement Board on November 27, 2024, at which time the board heard testimony, received evidence, and entered its compliance order, which was mailed certified return receipt to the respondents on November 27, 2024, which was delivered to the respondents on November 29, 2024, and posted on the property and at the City Hall Annex on November 27, 2024. Said compliance order required the respondent to have taken certain corrective actions by having the siding and the roof on the house structure repaired, building permits applied for and obtained, and the cement blocks and other miscellaneous items properly removed within 90 days of the November 27, 2024 Code Enforcement Board meeting, and to cease and desist from any future violations of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11b, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2a. On April 24, 2025, I re-inspected the property at 322 East Grace Street and found that the corrective action ordered by the board had not been taken in that the siding and the roof on the house structure remained in a state of disrepair, and the cement blocks and other miscellaneous items remained on the property, and the property remained in non-compliance. On April 25, 2025, a notice of hearing imposing penalty and affidavit of non-compliance was mailed to the respondents by a certified return receipt mail, which was received by the respondents on April 28, 2025. On April 25, 2025, I posted said notice of hearing imposing penalty and affidavit of non-compliance on the property and at the City Hall Annex. On May 27, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the violations had not been corrected, and that the siding and the roof on the house structure remained to be in a state of disrepair, and the outside storage remained on the property. The property has been in violation of the compliance order for the 182 days of non-compliance from November 27, 2024 to May 27, 2025. I am submitting 12 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the condition of the site at the time the pictures were taken. I am submitting an invoice for unpaid case costs in the amount of $48.08, plus additional case costs incurred in the amount of $33.28, for total case costs incurred in the amount of $81.36.
Questions for Ms. Ochtenberg?
Has there been any communications other than the letters?
There has. On April 30th, I spoke with the property owner. Both myself and Mason Parks, whom is our zoning technician, spoke with the property owner and explained that a certificate of appropriateness was needed during the permit process, during obtaining a permit. For the demolition permit. They had applied for a demolition permit, and due to it being a historic structure, a certificate of appropriateness is needed. So the permit had been rejected by zoning due to the certificate of appropriateness being needed. Both myself and Mason Parks had explained that to the property owner on April 30th.
Whose responsibility is it to apply for the certificate of appropriateness, and has that been done?
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor, I've been sworn. It's the property owner's responsibility, and it has not been done.
Okay, and are they aware that this is their responsibility?
Yes.
I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that if they apply for a certificate of appropriateness and that is approved, that they can go ahead and demolish the structure.
That is correct.
In which case, this issue of being out of compliance with the code is all mooted.
The demolition requirements would be to remove everything from the property, so ultimately, yes.
Yes, it would moot that. Okay.
Who issues that certificate, building or zoning?
That would be urban design.
Oh, urban design.
Yep.
And once they got the demolition permit, they would be in compliance at that point?
No, they would have to cure the violations, so they would have to actually remove the structure. So the permit gives them additional time to remove the structure, but ultimately, until the structure is either repaired or removed, they would still be in violation.
So are we looking for them to obtain the permit or to remove the structure, or both?
Either.
Sorry?
They can repair it. They can get the permit to demolish it. That's their options.
Okay, would you consider them to be in compliance if they obtain a permit to demolish it?
If the demolition, if the requirements for the demolition permit were carried out, yes.
So you'd have to have the demolition be completed in order for them to be in compliance.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, because there's also an outside storage of a cement block that's behind the house. That would also have to be removed as well.
And they're already in violation of our order.
Have the owners indicated, I mean, do they intend to demolish or do they want to keep it as historical? Do we know?
On April 30th, I spoke with property owner and she indicated that they would like to demolish it.
Okay.
Yes. And that they had applied for the demolition permit, which then led us to the certificate of appropriateness being needed due to it being a historic structure.
And this is just a question for me. The previous one, the screen missing was deemed a public nuisance. Would this also be, why wouldn't this be deemed a public nuisance, as people could, it could be used for any of a number of things, creating a public nuisance? That's just a question. I'm not,
Yeah, we're not permitted to place a public nuisance on the house because we don't know what the interior looks like. We don't know if it's structurally sound or not. That would be an inspection by building and or fire.
And did this owner at one time present at this board?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all. Okay.
Yeah, they were here.
Yeah.
I'm still not clear. What did we ask them to do when we issue our order? I don't know that.
Cease and desist.
I'm trying to understand what they're not in compliance with. I know they didn't do what we asked them to. I don't remember what we asked them to do.
Said compliance order required the respondent to have taken certain corrective actions by having the siding and the roof on the house structure repaired, building permits applied for and obtained, and the cement blocks and other miscellaneous items properly removed within 90 days of the November 27th, 2024 Code Enforcement Board meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Mr. Lewis, do you have anything you want to say?
No.
You know, it seems to me that behind the scenes, the property owner tried to decide what to do and recognized that it was probably better just to demolish the property. And that's the way they want to go. And they've in fact said that to the city, that they wish to demolish the property. So we have to kind of take that into consideration.
When you're ready, I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead. Anything else?
No, so we went through this similar process with the house over on Mary Street. Given that the certificate of appropriateness for certain historic and quasi-historic properties is at best sometimes convoluted. So it's easily understandable that these people said, okay, we can fix it, no, we can't fix it, so let's tear it down. But the certificate of appropriateness is an added level of bureaucracy that is sometimes not obvious to the uninitiated here. So it's entirely understandable what they're, that they're kind of trapped here. So, yeah.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion? Sure.
Rich, I'd like to make a motion to find and respond to the violation of the compliance order in order that a fine in the amount of $9,100 be imposed, representing a fine of $50 per day for 182 days of noncompliance from November 27th, 2024 to May 27th, 2025, plus applicable interest of 9.5% per annum. And said fine shall continue to run until the respondent comes in compliance with the particular code. As further ordered, the respondent is required to pay unpaid case costs in the amount of $48.08, plus pay additional case costs incurred in the amount of $33.28 for a total of $81.36 within 30 days of receipt of the order. It is further ordered the failure to comply with this order may cause the code enforcement board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. And I picked $50 a day because there has been some communications. There are some hoops they have to go through, but they did violate our previous order.
Is there a second? Or any discussion?
I'm just a little concerned that $50 is a little high. In light of the fact that, yes, they have violated our order, I agree. However, they have had some communication. They have tried to do some things, I believe, and as Mr. Como said, that's kind of a convoluted process, and perhaps $50 a day for $9,100 is a little bit high, and perhaps we should consider maybe half that.
Well, my opinion is $50 a day is on the low side of what we can apply. I would like to get their attention, and quite frankly, they could have came to the board and told us what's holding them up, but there's no one here representing them. So although there was some communications, it was minor, and I think $50 a day is on the low side.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to recall from prior cases when we first started penalties, we've had cases where we've had to increase that penalty and get very high. And so we started relatively low. I just don't recall if that was high.
Also, when they're done, they can always, when they bring this property in compliance, they can always come back and say, here's the problems we had, could you reduce our fine? That's an option open to these people.
Okay.
Just my thoughts.
Sure.
Mr. Kamal?
I tend to agree with Ms. Antona on this. I understand the intent, but the overall intent of the board is compliance, not punishment. And so if our goal is compliance, if we can get there in a less painful way, it's already going to cost them a good bit. And I know nothing about the ownership or anything else, but I think we have the option to increase it later. But it's not an unreasonable fine. The reasoning is sound. I just think that sometimes our goal again is compliance and not punishment. So just my thoughts.
Okay, I have one question and then I have a comment. Assuming that someone applies for a certificate of appropriateness, what's the normal time frame in terms of having it be issued or denied?
So Urban Design would review it and approve or deny. Typically, a good indication would be 42, 72 hours.
Oh, okay, so just a couple days.
Yeah.
But doesn't it still have to go to the HPAB?
Yes.
Which meets monthly?
Yeah, that I'm unaware of. I was just speaking of her question on how quickly the turnaround is for the review.
Yeah, but a certificate has to be approved by the HPAB,
What's that?
the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. It's another city board just like this, that, you know,
And I assume this property is historic only because it's in the historic district. There's no specific.
Hi, Ashley Omelansky Carney, board clerk. Yes, after urban design reviews it, it does get set on the agenda for HPAB. We like to get the agendas out 2 weeks prior, so they would have to have all of their items submitted at least 30 days prior.
And all of this process would be triggered by the respondent applying for
Once-
a certificate of appropriateness.
Yes, once they apply for it, it can get put on the agenda. But like I said, at least 30 days prior for every department to review it, then it gets put on the agenda.
this is the whole mess we got in with the Wileys over on Mary Street. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's not enough to just apply for a certificate of appropriateness, because, you know, if you have the certificate and you don't demolish the property, you're still not in compliance.
Which is what happened with the Wileys, yeah.
Right.
But this has been going for 6 months now,
Yeah, I understand.
so they need
They
to
need
move
to
along.
move. They need to move. Yeah, I agree. All right. The comment I wanted to make was, we need to, I think that any order would need to specify what constitutes compliance. And from what I'm hearing, compliance would be constituted either by repair per the board's previous order, or demolition of the property, complete demolition after obtaining all the required permits. 'Cause we don't want-
I'll amend the motion to say that.
Thank you. And you still want $50?
I think it's on the low side of anything we've ever given. Get their attention and let them start working towards this, or communicate with us. If they came here and said, I need a year to do this,
You'd say, okay.
we probably would have continued this for them. So it's on the property owner to bring their property in compliance. They've known about this since November. They had one communication since November. They're not here. That's their responsibility. And that's the lowest dollar amount we've ever put on a fine since I've been on this board.
Okay, and they didn't communicate, just to, also to remark, they didn't communicate with staff until after the 90 days was up.
That's right.
So,
True.
sure.
I just want to clarify something in terms of the timeline. Once they're notified, they applied for a permit close to being advised of the violation, or did they dawdle?
Apply for any permits.
And more importantly, so they applied for a permit, were they notified at that time that, sorry, we can't issue a permit, you have to go and get a certificate of appropriateness?
Can we either get a second for the motion or announce that the motion has died before we continue
We're
conversation,
still
please?
working.
I know, but before you continue conversation, they don't have to vote yes on it, they can vote no on it, but because the minutes are gonna get really messy that he's made this motion and it's hanging while you guys are continuing conversation. So
I don't
you'll
think
just
we
either
have- I don't
second it or announce it's died.
It's not, I don't think it's either died or seconded.
You guys don't have to approve it just because it gets seconded.
I understand that. I don't think there's been a second. I certainly haven't seconded it.
No.
No.
Right, that's my request though, is
I
that
don't
somebody
think,
will.
I'm not, okay. Is there a second for this, for the motion Mr. Rich made, which is $50 a day, as amended, which is to
Either being
constitute, what constitutes compliance? Being
What-
repair or
compliance with
demolition?
our previous order, or demolished and cleaned.
Right. After obtaining a prior permit.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second the motion.
You will. $50 a day?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying
I
aye.
just want to follow up on,
Okay.
in terms of what I had
I
introduced.
saw, can you repeat the question, please?
Well, the question is, did the respondent apply for, well, the respondent did apply for a permit. At that point, did somebody in the permit office advise them that a permit couldn't be issued until they got a certificate of appropriateness?
Yes.
They were advised?
Yes.
Okay. And they ignored that.
They were aware of that on April 30th, 2025, when Meredith spoke to them.
Oh, so before that, they weren't aware of that requirement?
Not until they put in a demolition permit, and then it was failed in our system, and then they were told that a certificate of appropriateness
So
is
for
needed.
discussion here, why should they be penalized for anything before April 25th? And
Well,
that's
they-
when they're notified. They applied for a permit, everything seemed to be going along smoothly until somebody realized, no, you need a certificate of appropriateness, and that didn't happen until April 25th?
Well, we ordered them in November to comply with the 90 days, and April's after the 90 days.
Okay, then again, another point of clarification. Didn't you say that they had actually pulled permits for repair of the roof and siding, which was the
Which is
November
the November order.
order? And subsequent to that, they changed from repair to demolition, and then asked for the demolition permit to find that they needed a certificate of appropriateness. Again, we're looking at a timeline here.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if they've applied for building permits regarding the roof. I'd have to look that up.
The concern that I have is that they are caught up in a bureaucracy, and they shouldn't be penalized for
But
that.
see, we
I
can't
understand that.
assume that they're caught up in a bureaucracy. We don't know that. What we know is what they've told us and what the timeline shows us. We can't do our own investigation and try to figure out what happened behind the scenes. That's up to the homeowner to come here and tell us, here's the problems I'm having, and then you can consider that. We don't have any of that information.
Okay,
And you
so.
can't assume it.
So for consistency's sake, our consistency, we had the Wiley House on Mary for months, and we continued it, and we continued it, and they were in the same issue about needing a contractor and a certificate of appropriateness, and they got the certificate of appropriateness, but it was only for the roof. And then they were told, no, you need another one, because now you need one for doors and windows. And they went through it again. They finally ended up going for demolition. But we never find them in that entire process. And now we're getting ready to find these people for essentially the same situation.
They came here and told us,
But they had 6 months in between. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's my concern. I understand that now they wanted to do A, and now they're told they have to go get another, get more, a certificate of appropriateness, go through more bureaucratic hoops. But where have they been from November to April? We don't know. And from April to today, where's the certificate of appropriateness application? Those are my two concerns.
and that's on the homeowner to tell us.
It's on the
that.
homeowner,
They have to
right.
present that to us. We don't know that.
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor, have been sworn, just for the record. We did look at the building permits attached to this property. The only building permit that they have pulled since 2004 was the demo permit. So there was no permit to repair the roof.
And that came in when? When did they apply for a demo permit?
Besides the when, that permit was issued inappropriately because there was a required C of A.
Right, well, it never was issued. They applied for it.
The application date for the demolition of the single family was November 26th of 2024.
Huh.
So.
At which time planning and zoning, hang on.
Same time as our meeting. Our meeting is the 27th. They have a present at that meeting, I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember.
They were here,
minutes would
I
tell
wasn't
us.
here. I was busy.
All my notes
It's in
yesterday.
my own stuff.
Which it was rejected. It was rejected by zoning December 17th, 2024.
Okay.
And any time a permit gets rejected, property owner and or the contractor that pulled the permit is notified.
So in terms of any finding, the clock should start in December, when they notified that it was rejected. No? N'est-ce pas?
I think there's a point there. That they were trying to take action to correct. Okay.
Yes. I think I would need to not be able to vote on this because I had a situation very similar to this after the hurricane, to be able to get a permit, and the contractor put it in. We were waiting for this to happen to be able to start the work on it. Nothing ever came about. I never got any kind of notification. The contractor did not, until I actually called the building department to find out where it is, and they said, you need to have a notice of commencement done. That was partly on my contractor's fault, who does it, but it took forever for me to be able to get that done, and then when I finally got the notice of commencement form and filled it out and dropped it off at the permit department, thinking everything was fine, waited for a few more days, nothing happened. I called and they said, oh, you needed to put that into the county, not in the city. So I can understand what these people are going through with the whole demolition permit of not being informed and yeah.
Daniel P. Lewis, yeah. Daniel P. Lewis, Board Counsel. Just to kind of reset things, as a reminder that this is not a guilt phase. We are past that. This is you've already put an order in place that and found the violation. So this is a penalty phase. So you're not determining whether or not there has been a violation. That has been taken care of. And you are now determining whether or not that order has been complied with. And that's what you're looking at right now. And generally how they work is, since this is not as far as I can see from my review of the paperwork, it is not a repeat violation. You go from the date of compliance. So whatever date you said you must be in compliance by this date, if they are not in compliance from that date, that is when the daily fines start ticking.
Okay, so it's not 182 days, because on our order in November, we gave them 90 days. So it would be 90 days from November, correct? Yeah.
Depending on what the order says.
Correct.
But to the
While
staff
they're
is,
doing that, that's an excellent point, by the way.
the next part is, Mr. Johnson, you asked whether or not you can be fair, whether or not you should rule on this. Again, as a board member, you are required to vote on it, unless there's a voting conflict of interest. But at the second point is whether or not you can be fair and impartial. Now, in this matter. Now, again, we're not at guilt stage. That's already been ruled upon. This is only whether or not there has been a compliance with the order. So it's more a question: can you be fair and impartial in regards to whether or not in placing a penalty, placing a fine on this matter? Because that's not, because really there hasn't. I would say at this point I haven't heard anything in my opinion but I'll leave it to you. That's why I question whether or not you can be fair and impartial. That would alleviate you of your voting requirements.
I would like to revisit what you had mentioned before about having a lower amount for this. Even if we ever figure out with the 90 days, I think that even the $50 for however long is a little bit too much for this, taking into account the shape of the house and what it is. It just seems like that's an awful lot of a penalty for somebody with a house in this condition and this type.
Okay.
Nick Faulkner, Code Compliance Supervisor. I've been sworn. Because they violated your order of 90 days, it goes back to the date that you set the order. If they came into compliance before the order, then they wouldn't be here. And that's how it's always been presented to the board on penalty hearings.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, do you agree with that?
I'll have to review your code as to that point, but
Because it sounded like you were contradictory to that.
Yeah.
I will just review the code on that
Sure.
point. But again, I just wanted to clarify whether or not Mr.
Yes.
put on
Okay,
record.
so let's get back to, do you feel okay voting?
I feel okay voting for an amended motion.
Okay, well, you can certainly, if the motion is something that is higher than you'd like, you can vote no.
Yes.
So procedurally, we have to vote. If it's no, then we vote on another
An
motion.
amended motion.
And after discussion, if he chooses to withdraw it, it can be withdrawn. I just needed it for record purposes that it had been seconded.
Well, if there's a motion that's been made and seconded, and we vote on it, it doesn't have to be a unanimous vote.
True,
Right.
yes.
Okay, while they're talking, let's address among ourselves, we have a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded for $50. And then a comment that you think $50 a day is too much. What would you propose?
Half of that,
So
25.
25, okay?
I don't get it.
And your rationale for 25 is because,
I don't believe that the homeowners get the information as they need it to be able to do it. I know that they've had this before, but from the looks of it, in my opinion, the house, if we go with the $50, that $9,100, it's going to continue going because of the whole process of getting that permit for demo. It's probably going to just about double with the amount of time it takes to be able to get that done. That fine's going to be more than what the property's worth there. So I just think it would be beneficial so that this would be able to come to an ending that's satisfactory for everybody if we cut it down to the, what would that be, 40,
4550.
45.50?
okay, any other discussion on that?
It sounds like a broken record, but I still go back to the Wileys and Mary Street and how long we let that go on in terms of continuing it and let it go, and that they ended up having to go through the certificate process not just once but twice, and no fine was ever levied on them through the entire process. And it was, and for months they never came in or came back. You know, they had a problem, and then then our time was up. They came back and they still hadn't done anything, and we gave them another.
Yeah, but they came back.
Yeah, because like this, they're, you know, they had hit we had to bring them back because all we did the first time was say, go get a contract. It didn't say do anything, it was just,
Oh, yeah.
remember? And so, okay, they got a contract, and then the contractor said, I can't do anything. So they didn't do anything. And they waited until they were in violation again, and code went out and said, you know, that's why it wasn't a repeat. It was a, I don't know, you again? And still, there was no fine levied, and eventually they did end up getting a demolition permit, but it was an extended and painful process. And a lot of the same issues. The respondents in that case just had a complete lack of understanding of the process and kept, you know, they needed their hand held all the way through the process.
Okay, but to me, in my view, there's a big difference between somebody who has a complete misunderstanding of the process and needs their hand held and keeps coming back and back and back, and somebody that ignores the city.
That's right. You need to get their attention And then if the fine is too much, they can come back and say, we had these problems, problem A, problem B, problem C, and we'd like you to consider reduction. I don't think there's ever been a reduction request that we haven't granted, ever.
And that's why I originally said I'd like to consider half of it, and I changed my opinion, and I seconded your motion because I agree. I think, as I agree with the chairman, that had they been here and made some effort to explain, it would have offered some. We have to take it on what evidence that we have. We can speculate all we want that they don't know, and that may be, but we don't know that. So I would go ahead with your proposed motion of $50. And should there be extenuating or things, then they need to present themselves here before us.
Had they been here, we may have extended it.
Exactly.
We might have said,
Okay.
okay, we'll give you 6 months.
Exactly.
Madam Chair, I call for the question.
Yes.
I call for the question to vote, cut off.
Call for
all
a question to
discussion.
vote? We're still waiting
Please.
on the issue of how many days.
How many days? That's all. But thank you.
You were in Congress in your prior, your prior life.
He's using Robert's Rule of Order. We want to take a break in case anybody has to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, okay, we'll go off the record, take a break until they're done.
That way people can deal with.
Interesting what he's using for
Okay, well, let's go back on the record, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, Madam Chair. After discussion with city staff, I believe the county date is going to be from the end of the compliance period.
End of the compliance period?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 90 days from
Your order.
I order, okay.
Which would be what, please?
February 25th.
Thank you.
Okay, so 90 days from 182 is 92 days, is that right?
Eighty-two minus 90,
So now it's 50
92.
times
Yeah,
1900.
92 times 50, right.
92 times 50.
$1,900.
That'd be 4,800 bucks.
It's
Oh,
4,600.
you're right, I'm sorry. I'm way off.
4,600.
Okay, all right, so I'm assuming you will amend your motion to make it from...
How did I start from scratch?
Good idea.
Okay,
Do you want to withdraw that one then?
Yes.
Because it's still on the table.
so that motion is withdrawn.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to find that the respondent is in violation of compliant, wait, make sure I'm on the right one here. This is Grace Street, yes, okay. Motion to find the respondent is in violation of compliance order in order that a fine in the amount of $4,600 be imposed, representing a fine of $50 a day for 92 days of noncompliance from February
25.
2025 to May 27, 2025, plus applicable interest of 9.50% per annum. And said fine shall continue to run until the respondent comes into compliance with the code. It is further ordered the respondent is required to pay unpaid case costs in the amount of $48.08, plus pay additional case costs in the amount of $33.23, for a total of $81.36 within 30 days of receipt of this order. It is further ordered that failure to comply with this order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 a day per applicable interest, with compliance meaning either meet the original compliance order or obtain demolition and removal of all materials
After obtaining.
after obtaining the proper permits.
I will second that motion.
All right, is there any discussion? Mr. Johnson, how about your concern that $25 a day is more appropriate?
With the lesser amount of time, I will go along with that amount.
All right, so there's no concern on your part. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. The board finds that the respondents are in violation of the compliance order and order a fine in the amount of $4,600 be imposed, representing a fine of $50 per day for 92 days of noncompliance from February 25th, 2025 to May 27, 2025, plus applicable interest of 9.50% per annum, and the said fine shall run until the respondent comes into compliance with the Punta Gorda Code, and further ordered the respondents be required to pay unpaid case costs in the amount of $48.08, plus pay additional case costs incurred in the amount of $33.28, for a total of $81.36 within 30 days of receipt of the order, further ordering that the failure to comply with the order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day, plus applicable interest, and the board specifies that in this manner, the term compliance constitutes repair in conformance with the board's additional order or complete demolition of the property after obtaining required permits. Thank you, and thank you all. Okay, the last item on the agenda, another hearing imposing penalty. Hearing in case number 24-86532, Code Compliance Officer Meredith Achtenberg, Respondent Yisakar Cohen, address of violation 1601 Naranja Street, violations alleged Chapter 26, Section 8.11B, Property Maintenance Structure, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2A, Outside Storage. Is the respondent present? Is the respondent present? All right, the respondent not being present, I will enter a plea of not guilty on behalf of the respondent. Meredith Ochtenberg.
Meredith Ochtenberg, for the Code Compliance Officer for the City of Punta Gorda, and I have been sworn. This matter having come for hearing before the City of Punta Gorda Code Enforcement Board on January 22nd, 2025, at which time the board heard testimony, received evidence, and entered its compliance order, which was mailed certified return receipt to the respondent on January 22nd, 2025, which was returned undelivered on February 13th, 2025, and posted on the property and at the City Hall Annex on January 22nd, 2025. Said compliance order required the respondent to have taken certain corrective actions by having the missing and/or damaged soffit, fascia, and siding repaired or replaced and the outside storage properly removed from the property within 90 days of receipt of the notice, and to cease and desist from any future violations of the Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Section 8.11b, and Chapter 9, Section 9-2a. On April 29th, 2025, I re-inspected the property at 1601 Naranja Street and found that the corrective action ordered by the board had not been taken, in that the missing and/or damaged soffit, fascia, and siding had not been repaired or replaced, and the outside storage remained on the property, and the property remained in non-compliance. On April 29th, 2025, a notice of hearing imposing penalty and affidavit of noncompliance was mailed to the respondent via certified return receipt mail, which had not been returned or delivered. On April 29th, 2025, I posted said notice of hearing imposing penalty and affidavit of noncompliance on the property and at the City Hall Annex. On May 27th, 2025, I re-inspected the property and found that the missing and/or damaged soffit, fascia, and siding had not been repaired or replaced, and the outside storage remained on the property, and the property remained in non-compliance. The property has been in violation of a compliance order for 126 days of non-compliance from January 22nd, 2025 to May 27th, 2025. I am submitting 12 photos for the record. The pictures submitted for evidence are a true and accurate representation of the condition of the site at the time the pictures were taken. I am submitting an invoice for unpaid case costs in the amount of $58.54, plus additional case costs incurred in the amount of $51.46, for total case costs incurred in the amount of $110.
I have a question. Okay, why don't you go first till I get my question?
So does the 126 days calculated correctly based on our new information? No. Okay, so that's going to change.
Sorry. All right, Ashley Omalansky Carney, Code Board Clerk. So the new calculation would be you gave them 90 days from their previous order. So the 90 days after the January 22nd meeting fell on April 21st. So we're going to start from April 22nd until May 27th. So it's going to be 36 days of noncompliance.
Okay.
And has there been any communications with the property owner?
No, there is not.
Okay, and I missed it. Notice of today's hearing was done by posting on the property. Was it done by any other means?
It was mailed certified return receipt.
And was it returned? Undelivered? Was it received?
Not returned, not delivered, I think.
It was not returned or delivered.
Neither returned nor delivered. Okay, thank you.
And they didn't pay the original order for case costs.
They did.
Ashley's looking.
They did not pay?
That's my question.
I thought they had. Yeah. That's that PL. That's that PL. Those wires up there.
While she's looking that up, have there been any improvements from the original order till now?
It looks like the siding's been done.
I'll show you. So some of the siding has been repaired.
But not the soffit.
So I'll show you.
Some improvements.
Electrical repairs too.
So this is from April 29th. This part has not been repaired. However,
That part has. That part has.
that has.
Okay.
And the other end has also been repaired.
Okay, so they're doing something.
Did that
Just to get
clarify?
away in the city for the brewers, okay.
The one on the side of the garage structure. There.
That's not being repaired, correct?
You can see that that's been repaired from the previous picture.
So it looks like there's partials,
So the sidings,
some sides.
some of the siding's
Right.
done, but not all of it, okay? And the soffit is still not done. Soffit's easier than the siding, right? It's just soffit siding and the outside stuff. And that trailer's still there.
And the outside storage issue still exists, is that correct?
That's correct.
Is this house habited? Is somebody living in here?
I do not know.
Do you see it's up on blocks?
It
Some
looked like there
trash.
was a full trash can.
Yeah, I'm looking at
Right
trash.
there.
Oh, yeah, there was
Yesterday.
trash. Yesterday, okay.
And then to clarify your question from before, the case costs from the November meeting have not been paid yet.
Okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any motion?
I'll make a motion that the city, oh, we don't have to make a motion.
Right.
No,
We have to make a
prima
motion.
facie.
No,
No.
prima facie case, no.
We don't.
We don't. But you have to make a motion.
I'll let somebody else.
Okay, you'll let somebody else do that. All right. Anyone else? Anyone like to make a
I'm
motion?
not going to be here next month.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to find a respondent in violation of compliance order to pay a fine in the amount of $1,800, representing a fine of $50 a day for 36 days of noncompliance from April 22nd to May 27, 2025, plus applicable interest of 9.50% annum. And said fine shall continue to run until the respondent comes in compliance with the code. It is further ordered the respondent is required to pay unpaid case costs in the amount of $58.54, plus pay additional case costs incurred in the amount of $51.46, for a total of $110 within 30 days of receipt of this order. It is further ordered that failure to comply with this order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 per day plus applicable interest. I picked $50 because although there has been no communications and they haven't paid the case costs, they have made some improvements.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The board has found the violated the compliance order and orders a fine in the amount of $1,800 be imposed, representing a fine of $50 a day for 36 days of noncompliance from April 22nd, 2025 to May 27th, 2025, plus applicable interest of 9.50% per annum, and the fine shall continue to run until the respondent comes into compliance with the Punta Gorda Code. And it's further ordered that the respondent be required to pay unpaid case costs in the amount of $58.54, plus additional case costs incurred in the amount of $51.46, for a total of $110 within 30 days of receipt of the order, and further ordered that failure to comply with the order may cause the Code Enforcement Board to impose a fine of up to $250 a day, plus applicable interest. All right, thank you. Okay, that concludes the case agendas, the cases on the agenda. Any comments from the staff?
Code Compliance Supervisor have been sworn. Not only is Kathleen Antona leaving us, but Ashley Olansky Carney is also leaving us. This is her last code board. She has taken a position with the city manager's office.
Oh,
Promotion?
Yes.
congratulations.
Very nice.
We will miss you.
Yes.
I'll miss you guys too. I'll hopefully try to make the June one.
Okay.
You can't do that.
And what will you be doing for the city manager?
I'll be the executive assistant for the city manager.
Oh,
Wonderful.
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I have
Any,
three questions.
all right,
If you want me to go first or last, your choice.
you can go first.
Okay, so I have three questions on my mind. One of them is, since we have been miscalculating the fines, do we have to go back for any fines that have been levied but not paid and reestablish a new baseline?
Great question.
I was thinking that too.
I guess I'll go ahead and get on the hot seat on this
Yeah.
one. Stephen Leskovich, the interim city attorney. Once the order is written, someone has 30 days to file an appeal. If that 30-day time period has expired, they're stuck with what the order is.
Okay. And I've heard that, now that you mention that, I've heard that before, so thank you. That's
You're welcome.
consistent with what we've been told in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Second question, is failure to pay, let's say a person brings the property in compliance but fails to pay the fine or the case costs, is that considered a failure to comply with the board's order?
Not everybody at once.
I guess I'll just stand up here then. From the city's perspective, if someone fails to comply with an order, it is a failure to comply.
So because it's part of the order,
It's because it's part of the order.
you have to do it all?
You have to do it all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Have we ever had that happen to your knowledge? Sorry, Mr. Les, the code. City.
Code compliance supervisor, Nick Faulkner, I've been sworn, not to my general knowledge off the top of my head. So, no.
Thank you.
And then my last question is a little bit of a history question that I'm not sure we'll be able to answer right now, but the gentleman that was here about the property on Cooper Street, we've issued a cease and desist to him within the last 5 years because I've only been on the board less than 5, I think, maybe going on 5, and I was on the board when we issued that order. So, since we had previously ordered a cease and desist, wouldn't he automatically be in a penalty phase?
That's at our discretion whether to bring him back for a cease and desist. We didn't feel like bringing him back for a penalty would be sufficient, as where we have most board members are newer. They wouldn't have general knowledge of the case previous. And as I stated before, Frank Comminger is a new code compliance officer, so throwing him in straight to a repeat penalty, cease and desist, would be kind of, kind of mean, I would say.
So we're actually cutting this guy a break by not going back to the old order, is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Because the issues were the same.
Yes.
And his discussion, because he came the last time too, and his discussion was the same. He said, you allowed the previous owner to violate, so why don't I, and I don't know any of that. I just know that his discussion was very similar and the issues were very similar. So we did cut him a break.
So I remember it pretty much exactly as you, because I think we came on about the same time. So I know it's been within 5 years. But the last guy was a lot more contrite. He had somebody in his family had died. He was going back and forth to Arizona. He had just all kinds of personal problems, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, he was considerably more contrite the last time he was here than today. His attitude had shifted considerably. And I too had the same question. And, at least then, you're rolling the dice if some of us have been here and remember, I've seen that guy before, why isn't this a repeat? If you at least don't bring it up in your briefing that says, we've been here before, we're revisiting it, but in context, we're doing something different, because it sets up a completely different set of circumstances if you give the appearance that this is his first rodeo and it's not.
But during that period of what we were calling here non-compliance, had he ever been notified by the city?
About,
Oh, you mean saying, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
mister, you were subject to a cease and desist order? How about
For
ceasing
the
and
past
desisting?
5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
well, when we issue the order, he gets the order saying you have a cease and desist from the board.
True.
Well, I know that periodically we send multiple letters to folks when they're not in compliance. He was not in compliance. Any correspondence go to him in the last 5?
Oh, not that I'm aware of.
There's no follow-up.
Ashley Omelansky Carney, board clerk. Myself and Meredith have had phone conversations with him. He did not understand why he was receiving letters recently. We went back and stated that within the past 5 years, he had been cited for all of the same issues. So he was aware of which ones he was violating, if that helps.
Ah, okay. Is it normal practice, I'm sure you have a database of cases that you opened. Is it normal practice when you have a new case to look at your database and see what else has happened with that address?
Yeah.
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, once you plug in the address, all of the previous violations and cases will come up.
Come up.
The one we can't use anymore.
The one we're
The one
not
we
supposed
can't
to
use
look at.
anymore.
Oh, the one we don't use,
Yes.
right.
It's
They
been
use, right.
So, then it brings up a new question. By not enforcing the cease and desist, do we set a precedence for other people that we've sent a cease and desist order to that they don't follow? Do we have exposure there?
Lewis?
And
No. I mean,
I'm okay with that.
As the board, it's however the city wants to bring its case forward to you and in what capacity it wants to bring forward to you to make your decisions is at their discretion. It is at the board's discretion as well. So it really doesn't, someone can come up here and say, hey, you did this for other case, but every case is individual in some matter.
As long as you don't do it for an inappropriate reason.
Yeah.
so once he's in compliance with the original order, there's no follow-up for that 5-year period unless there's another finding of violation. There's not like you go back and check for continued compliance.
Right, once he
Yeah.
comes into compliance, we close the case, but if the code officer's out there doing routine inspections and comes across his property again, and he's got the same objects or the same violations of the code, then he would come back for a repeat violation.
Okay.
All right, anything further from anybody?
I do have a question.
Yeah, Mr.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Sure.
I had reviewed the minutes and I made a note and I just didn't catch it earlier. But anyway, there was supposed to be, on page 5 of last month's meeting, Ms. Rachel Barry, zoning official, suggested the language of the notice of violation could be updated to reflect some changes. Who takes the con on that to make sure that those changes, whatever they were in the discussion, were actually made? I mean, I don't know if it's zoning, I don't know if it's code
I
compliance.
think it would be code compliance.
Ms. Rachel Berry's not here at the moment either, so I can't, I don't want to speak
Okay.
for,
Okay,
speak for
so,
her.
Can you follow up on that,
Sure.
since you're the code compliance supervisor? Yeah.
Okay, it's on page 5 of last month's minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Good catch. Anything else? All right. If there's nothing else, then we are adjourned till next month. Thank you all for your attendance. Have a nice day.